Good morning, I'm Nick Forte. I'm the SVP of Fleet Services, and that's just a fancy name for someone that has to deal with maintenance and fuel on a daily basis. I want to take a little bit of time and really talk about fuel efficiency, not only necessarily by how your truck to operate it, but also really talking about optimization in purchasing, understanding how I can drive down my cost of fuel. Right now, as we look across the United States, cost of fuel, even with fuel surcharges, is astronomically high. And that is one of the single biggest variables in your business that you have to deal with and manage on a day to load to minute by minute instance. So we're going to take a little bit of time today, and I want to talk to you about how to operate your vehicle, where to operate your vehicle, and then also talking about some tools that we provide you here at Stevens to make you a successful business. Almost all of our trucks, there's very few limited trucks, maybe one or two that have a manual transmission, and they're probably 15 years old, that are running in our independent contractor fleet. With the new trucks, the automated manual transmissions, the ideal optimum operation of those trucks is to leave the truck in economy mode and in drive. Don't think that you can outshift the technology that is in the truck. In fact, a lot of times you will do yourself more harm by burning more fuel by bringing your RPMs higher. The new trucks are designed with the Cummins X15, that is the efficiency series. Well, what does that mean? Well, what that means is that you produce the full torque capacity, which is torque is what pulls you over the hill, not necessarily horsepower. Torque pulls you over the hill and gives you that thrust to move forward, to move your load. But your engines are producing that at 975 RPMs. That's a very low. It's called down speeding the engine. So you're producing maximum, torque capacity at a very low RPM. So what happens on that curve is you increase your RPMs, you don't gain any more torque or momentum. You move the horsepower needle, but again, horsepower doesn't pull you over the hill and pull you up. It actually just increases the performance. When you get above 12 to 1300 RPMs, you plateau on both performance and on the fuel efficiency. Once you go past about 1200 RPMs, you start consuming more fuel. Think of your engine as an air pump. The faster you spin it, the more air it takes in order to make it move. Same policy and philosophy applies with an internal combustion engine. The more that you rotate that engine, the more fuel and air that it consumes, so therefore it degrades your fuel economy. So what is this about the efficiency series that you keep hearing me talk about? Efficiency series adds a couple of other different features. The two biggest single things that you can do to really optimize fuel efficiency for your truck is, one, use cruise control. Your truck is designed with predictive cruise control. So across the United States, they've not only mapped the road's GPS, but they've also mapped the elevations. And the truck will change its fuel consumption based off the elevations, called predictive cruise control. So this may mean that at the top of a hill, you might see that the engine cuts back and drops a mile or two. And what it's doing is it's allowing you to throw the inertia of the truck, throw it over the hill, so you gain fuel efficiency. You'll also see that the truck will go into eco, which means that it drops down to 600 RPMs and it uses the momentum of a truck on slow grades. And what that does is it generally adds about 9 to 10% decrease in the overall engine consumption by dropping it down. One of the other things that we were going to talk about is idle. Idle not only will drive your cost, you burn a gallon an hour, just consider it a gallon an hour. Now I understand that we have black trucks and we're in South Texas. It gets hot, I get it. Generally above 95 degrees in a truck, the APU does not keep up. I don't care if you pre-cool the truck, you close all the curtains. With a black truck in direct sun above 95 degrees, the APU won't keep up. So I understand idling your truck for optimal efficiency and comfort as a driver, and also making sure you're getting good rest. But at all means, if it's below 95 degrees and it's not hot, use your APU. That's a real important thing. The idle not only adds to your additional cost on fuel consumption, but it also adds to your cost on maintenance. The other variable in your your business and profitability is maintenance. So let's talk about where do we want to set our trucks. So optimally, the trucks are designed to between 64 and 65 miles an hour. If you set your cruise control at 64 to 65 miles an hour, you're going to get the optimal sweet spot, which means you're going to feel nice and powerful, but you're also going to get some of the best fuel economy. If you really want to go slow and make dough, 62 miles an hour is probably where I would be at the lowest. You'll get your most optimum fuel economy, but your performance is going to degrade just a little bit. You're not going to get the peak swifts that you're used to doing. The other thing that as we kind of look around our truck, we need to make sure that our tires are inflated. You know, we want 100 PSI on the tires. Underflated tires, 10% can degrade fuel economy and also increase tire wear, which again is your maintenance cost. So really focus on making sure that we've got adequate air pressure. I'm talking to professionals here. I know you're doing daily pre-trips, but just to understand the numerical value behind that, 10% fuel deduction on low tires, that's a pretty easy number to save at by just checking your tire pressure. We really want to make sure that we snug up the trailer to the back of the truck. We've got to keep ourselves legal and within the weight, but the closer we can keep that front of that trailer to the back of the truck without causing damage to either the truck or trailer will give us optimal fuel economy. And why is that? Well, it's the aero package of the truck. As the air flows around the truck, the fairings and stuff kick the air out around the trailer. If you have too much of a gap, what happens is it comes back in around and it'll actually catch the front of the trailer where the reefer's at, and it acts like a parachute. So it's very, very important to make sure that we have the proper spacing. We're not too far or too close, where weights are correct to get the optimal fuel economy. Some of the other things to kind of look at as we go through this is that for every 10% usage of cruise control is a 1/10 of a mile per gallon. And it could be a little bit better, but we'll just call that the simple math. And then for about every 10% of idle adds 1/10 of a mile per gallon to your tank. Again, it's all about being efficiently burning the fuel. But we focus on that. We don't make high-speed movements. When I talk about that, you don't hard brake a lot. The more you hard brake, the more you have to accelerate, the more fuel you burn. So those are some different context into our driving speed. We just kind of want to go slow and make dough. I mean, that's at the end of the day, we want to bring as much profit home as possible. Let's talk about the buying of the fuel, because that's the other big piece of this. In many cases, a lot of us will look on our ComData app and we'll look and we'll see what the fuel price is and where we're going when we're doing our route. While I'll respect anybody that wants to kind of do that, there's a tool here at Stevens that will really help you. It's our fuel optimizer. So you really need to get fuel solutions for your trip. The great thing about using our fuel solutions is, one, it takes the current condition of the truck, what's your average mile per gallon, how much fuel do you have on the truck, and then it looks at your route. So on your pre-plan, if you're going from X to Y, it knows, hey, here's the fuel and route that we're going to do. It'll also help make sure that we're getting the most cost-effective fuel, whether it be at the pump, but also to say, let me get you out of states. There's certain states that have more fuel tax and are less desirable to purchase in. And in some cases, I'll use California example, we want to purchase fuel before we go into California. I'm talking about if you think you're going to be in there, fill up to get in, get out. Stop in Arizona and Nevada. Now, fuel's not cheap per se in those locations, but it is much more cheap than when we look at California. And the fuel and route optimizer will take that into consideration. It'll say, yeah, we don't want any more than 50 gallons purchased for an over-the-road truck in California. So it's going to push you, filling your capacity tanks up before going in there. Again, we really want to just let the optimizer use it, because the more that we optimize and we're now buying fuel correctly, we're not putting inventory in our tanks. That's the other thing that we have to understand is, overfilling and just putting fuel in your tanks, that becomes liquid inventory. What I mean by that is that it's cash that's in fuel that you haven't generated any revenue with yet. Your ideal way to operate a business is to be lean. And when I say lean, it says buy only the fuel that you're going to use within the next 2 to 3 days on your load. Don't over purchase. Don't keep that cash in those tanks, but optimize your total return on what you're going to bring home. At the end of the day, most of the time is what we look at the end of the week on our paycheck is how we're going to determine whether we were successful. So these are just some of the the different nuances to really making sure that we're buying fuel, we're trying to optimize the best fuel economy. And it's really important because a lot of this will play into not only, better fuel economy, better money, and better take home, but it also brings into this consideration it's a more safe and optimal way to operate your truck. Again, a few tips. I hope everybody stays safe. Be careful out there. We appreciate what you do.